That said, our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain.
AMC theaters just did something that left Hollywood in total shock. They yanked Disney's live-action Snow White from screens nationwide. This wasn't a quiet exit, it was a major theater chain telling Disney we're done with their big-budget fairy tale remake. The move sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry because this almost never happens to a Disney movie. Theater chains typically keep Disney films running for weeks, even if they're underperforming. This time, AMC's decision wasn't just business as usual, it was a clear message that the relationship between Disney and theaters might be changing. The move exposed just how badly Snow White had bombed.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
Theaters were sitting empty while other movies were packed. AMC was actually losing money by keeping it on screens. But how did a Disney remake with major stars and a beloved story crash this hard? The numbers were staggering. Attendance had dropped over 75% from opening weekend, with some showings having fewer than 10 people in huge theaters. Online ticket sales had practically stopped, and theater managers reported customers actively avoiding the film. Most flops at least have a core audience that shows up, but Snow White seemed to be actively repelling viewers in a way that shocked even the most experienced box office analysts. The trouble started months before release. Disney had hyped Snow White as their next guaranteed hit, following their usual playbook of updating classics with fresh faces and modern twists. They cast rising star Rachel Zegler as Snow White and Gal Gadot as the evil queen, convinced they had another billion-dollar success on their hands. The studio poured a reported $250 million into production and marketing, rolling out an early promotional campaign that initially generated positive buzz.
Yeah, I have a clip of it.
Oh, okay, great.
Her being a retard.
Okay.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Early test screenings had supposedly gone well, with Disney executives celebrating what they thought was another successful reimagining of their classic library. The merchandising deals had been locked in, theme park tie-ins were planned, and the Snow White marketing machine was firing on all cylinders. As news about the film leaked, fans started getting worried. Reports revealed massive changes to the story. No Prince Charming, a completely different ending, and a Snow White that barely resembled the character from the 1937 classic. Online forums and fan sites lit up with concerns, with leaked plot details suggesting Snow White would focus more on being a warrior leader than the gentle character from the original. The Seven Dwarfs had reportedly been reimagined as magical forest creatures with little connection to the miners from the classic. Even the iconic poisoned apple scene had apparently been reworked to remove the fairy tale elements many fans cherished. While Disney has successfully updated other classics, these changes seem to cut away the very heart of what made Snow White special. During press interviews, Zegler made comments that many fans took as dismissive of the original film. She suggested the classic needed major updates and changes. While some viewers appreciated her modern take, longtime Disney fans felt insulted. Social media exploded with anger, and Not My Snow White started trending online. Each new interview seemed to make the situation worse instead of better. Clips from these interviews went viral for all the wrong reasons, with commenters pointing out moments where she seemed to criticize rather than celebrate Disney's legacy.
It just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. The movie is really, really bad.
Fan forums and YouTube channels dedicated to Disney picked apart every word, creating compilation videos that painted a picture of an actress openly hostile to the source material. Disney tried to control the damage by booking safer media appearances and coaching their stars on what to say. Their plan fell apart during what should have been a routine segment on The View. What followed became the most talked about PR disaster in recent Hollywood memory. The appearance had been carefully planned as part of the damage control strategy. Disney's PR team had reportedly sent detailed guidelines to The View's producers, including specific talking points for Zegler to hit and topics to avoid. Everything was set for a smooth, controlled appearance that would help reset the narrative. Nobody expected the chaos that would follow. The View appearance was supposed to fix the growing problem, a friendly daytime show where Zegler could smooth things over with skeptical viewers. But minutes into the interview, everything went sideways. Zegler went off script, doubling down on controversial statements and making new comments that angered fans even more. What should have been softball questions about her excitement for the role turned into extended discussions about reimagining fairy tales for modern audiences. When one host gently brought up fan concerns about changes to the story, Zegler launched into a passionate defense that came across as lecturing rather than engaging. The audience's reaction was visible. What started as supportive applause gradually turned to uncomfortable silence. Behind the cameras, chaos erupted. Producers signaled frantically for commercial breaks, while Disney representatives watched in horror.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
Bitch! The
Our
right to buy
reproductive
Cosby
rights.
sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face
Go
of a
vote blue.
serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
The tension was obvious even to viewers at home as the View's hosts struggled to regain control of the conversation. After filming stopped, sources say Zegler was immediately escorted off set with Disney's PR team in full panic mode. Crew members described the scene backstage as explosive, with raised voices and visible tension between Zegler and the Disney representatives. Within hours, the studio had pulled all clips of the interview from official channels, but it was too late. Viewers had already recorded and shared the most controversial moments. The damage couldn't be undone. Clips from the meltdown spread everywhere online, creating endless memes and brutal comments. The hashtag #Snow White Meltdown started trending within hours, with millions of views across social media. Late-night comedians incorporated jokes about the disaster into their monologues. News outlets that normally wouldn't cover movie promotion picked up the story, framing it as a culture clash between Hollywood and audiences. Each new version seemed to spread farther than the last, reaching far beyond the usual Disney audience and into mainstream conversation. While Zegler became the face of the controversy, the rest of the cast got caught in the storm. Gal Gadot, who should have been a major draw as the evil queen, was completely overshadowed by the drama. Her interviews were derailed by questions about the controversy instead of her role in the film.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
Rumors spread about tension between the two stars, with whispers that off-camera conflicts had created bad vibes throughout production. Industry blogs reported that Gadot had requested separate press appearances, supposedly frustrated that her character and performance were being lost in the chaos. This wasn't what she had signed up for. Playing the evil queen in a Disney blockbuster should have been a career highlight. Instead, she was constantly asked about controversy rather than her performance. Gal Gadot kept her distance from the mess, giving only basic positive statements about the film while noticeably avoiding any defense of her co-star's comments. Everyone noticed her careful approach, protecting her own reputation while the project crashed around her. The united front Disney desperately needed was nowhere to be found. Other cast members followed similar strategies, focusing on their individual contributions rather than the overall project. The director made fewer and fewer public appearances as the controversy grew, with some scheduled interviews mysteriously canceled. By opening weekend, the damage was beyond repair. Box office numbers were terrible, far below even the worst predictions. Families, normally Disney's reliable audience, stayed away completely. Parents who would usually take their kids to any Disney movie were turned off by the non-stop drama. Industry analysts had initially projected an opening weekend of at least $85 million domestically.
But the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
Instead, the film barely scraped together $30 million, a catastrophic underperformance for a movie with such an enormous budget. International numbers, usually Disney's safety net, were equally dismal. The second weekend drop was even more alarming, a 70% decrease that signaled word of mouth was actively working against the film rather than helping it. Theater managers reported empty seats and pathetic attendance. Some smaller theaters had already cut back on showings, but AMC's decision to completely pull the film shocked everyone. Theater employees shared stories of awkward situations where entire screening rooms had fewer than 5 people, with some showings completely empty. Customer service desks were reportedly fielding unusual numbers of complaints about the film from those who did attend, with some even requesting refunds. AMC's announcement came just 17 days into what should have been a minimum 45-day theatrical run. an almost unheard of early termination for a major studio release. The fallout hit immediately. Disney's stock dropped as analysts questioned their remake strategy and Bob Iger's leadership after his return as CEO. Financial reports estimated the studio might lose upwards of $150 million on the project, factoring in the massive marketing spend and production budget. Investor calls turned tense as analysts demanded explanations for how such a sure thing had gone so wrong. The failure was so complete that even Disney's legendary merchandising machine couldn't salvage value. Retail partners reported Snow White products sitting unsold on shelves, with some items quickly moved to clearance racks. The ripple effects extended to Disney's theme parks, where planned Snow White attractions and character appearances were quietly put on hold. For Rachel Zegler, the disaster threatened to wreck a promising career just as it was taking off. Her name became linked to the failure, with industry publications openly asking if studios would now see her as a risk for future projects. Casting directors reportedly expressed private concerns about the baggage she now carried, wondering if audiences would bring negative associations to any future roles.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced,
He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
Her social media presence, once vibrant and engaging, became notably more reserved as she weathered the storm of criticism. The unfortunate timing couldn't have been worse for a young actress who had shown enormous promise in her debut role in West Side Story. What should have been a career-making performance had instead become a cautionary tale. Joe Rogan's breakdown of the controversy on his huge podcast only made the situation more visible. He described the disaster as a symptom of bigger Hollywood problems: out-of-touch studios, fake-feeling political messaging, and the danger of changing beloved classics without respecting what made them special. The 3-hour discussion became one of his most viewed episodes of the year, bringing the controversy to an even wider audience. Rogan walked through the entire saga from the earliest warning signs to the final AMC decision, bringing his trademark blend of humor and cultural analysis to each twist in the story. The conversation reached far beyond movie fans, becoming a broader discussion about corporate decision-making, artistic integrity, and the relationship between creators and audiences. The meltdown didn't just kill one movie, it changed how studios handle both remakes and their stars. Disney and other studios have started creating stricter rules for their actors during promotion, especially when dealing with beloved franchises. Some contracts now include specific requirements about what stars can say during marketing campaigns and how they use social media. Studios have reportedly expanded media training for actors, with more rigorous preparation before interviews. The days of stars freely expressing personal opinions about source material during promotional tours may be over, at least for major franchises with established fan bases.
And so it was like
those people.
Very much this, yes. It was this
people that we
awakening
need to educate, the people that we need to love into awareness.
love them in the right direction.
The Snow White disaster also forced studios to rethink how they update classic stories. The failure made it clear that while audiences are open to fresh takes, there are limits to how far you can go before losing your core fans. Just having a famous title and big stars isn't enough if the project feels disconnected from what people loved about the original. Development executives across Hollywood reportedly pulled remake projects for emergency reviews, reassessing how much they were changing from the source material. Some planned remakes were quietly shelved, while others saw hasty rewrites to bring them closer to their original versions. Most importantly, the meltdown showed the growing power of fan opinions in the social media age. When audiences feel disrespected or talked down to, they can unite against a project with devastating effect. What started as online complaints about casting and story changes snowballed into a movement that ultimately killed a $200+ million investment from the world's most powerful entertainment company. The speed and scale of the backlash shocked even experienced marketing executives. Traditional metrics like trailer views and social media engagement had actually looked promising before the controversy erupted. But those numbers couldn't capture the depth of audience sentiment or predict how quickly it could turn negative. The Snow White failure became a warning that Hollywood won't forget. It showed how quickly things can spin out of control when stars ignore the script, when studios misread what audiences want, and when damage control makes things worse. In an industry built on carefully controlled images, this spectacular public meltdown revealed how quickly it all falls apart when things go wrong on live TV. As AMC theaters took down Snow White posters and replaced them with upcoming releases, Hollywood executives paid close attention. No brand is too big to fail, no star too valuable to keep in line, and no classic too beloved to be ruined by mishandling. The fairest of them all had fallen, and the entire industry took notes on what not to do.